Okay, now, when you count the amount of time that I speak, the clapping and the cheering, not part of it. It doesn't count. And there's one church, the pastor said to me, okay, listen, whenever you get up in front of our church, you have to finish at 12 o'clock. And that was the day that they were honoring their graduates. 5 minutes to 12. He has me come up in front of the church. And I'm like, this is what Israeli children do when they want to make their parents look foolish. Seriously? Seriously? You know who runs the roost in Israel? Not us, our children. And there is a logic to it. People so often say to me, why do the children run wild in Israel? And the reason is because when they go to the army, we don't know if they're going to come home. So that's why they run rule. That's why they run. I can't believe that, like, we're a leader in research, technology, medicine, and everything, because if you'd see these kids in grammar school, you'd say it's an absolute, this is one of the great miracles, that they learn anything. So I have to tell a joke, because that's just the way we are. If you ever notice, I think Pastor made a comment, like so many of the comedians are Jewish. It's because it's, really the only line of defense that we had when we lived at other people's mercy. And if you remember Fiddler of the Roof, it's okay, I'll start what I was planning on saying in about 45 minutes. If you remember Fiddler in the Roof, whatever comes up to the rabbi and says, so tell me, Rabbi, do you have a blessing for the evil Tsar of Russia? And what does the rabbi says? May God bless and keep the Tsar far away from us. Okay, women, I don't want you to be insulted. It's not meant against you. This is the one and only joke I'm going to tell. Two elderly people. Did I tell this on Monday? I did? No? You weren't here? Why not? Oh, by the way, greetings to the Magnificent Seven. And I feel so bad because I knew you were going to be on Har Bracha when Ellen and I were there, and I didn't acknowledge it. So will you please stand up? I only have one question. Where are the other three? The nerve. Okay. So, and what is it? That was the Magnificent Seven. That's from some movie, I don't remember, like with Steve McQueen or in prehistoric days. And then there are people who were on your tour. That's the Magnificent 16, of which we only saw 12 in the picture. Okay? Yeah. Oh, I got it. Anyhow, it's wonderful to be in a congregation. I believe I've spoken in thousands of congregations all over the world since 1994. What is this nice Jewish boy doing, going around speaking in churches? Messianic. Well, it's because, you see, I've come to the realization that we're waiting for lost Israel to be reunited with us. Okay, so two elderly Jews from New York. I haven't told the joke. You're already laughing? From New York, come to visit Israel. While they're there, the wife passes away. So the member of the Chevra Kadisha, which is the Jewish Burial Society, comes to the husband and says, listen, you've got two choices what you can do with your wife. You can either send her back to New York where she can be buried. It'll cost you $5,000. Or she can be buried here in the Kedusha, the holiness of the Holy Land. And the man doesn't hesitate for a second. He says, I want to send my wife back to be buried in New York. And the Chevra Kadisha says, I don't understand. Why would you have your wife sent back? It's going to cost you $5,000 when she can be buried here in the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. The man responds, because a long time ago, a nice Jewish man died, and 3 days later rose from the dead. I cannot take a chance of this happening with my wife. Okay, ladies, I love you, really. You see, here's the deal. We men, what we really are acknowledging when we tell jokes, you're the better, much better half. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about politics. And here's the thing. I don't even call it politics. What's happening in Israel, between Israel and Ishmael, is not political. It's biblical. But nevertheless, I'm going to talk a little bit about politics tomorrow night. You better come, because I'll speak about it much more, but from a biblical perspective, because basically everything that's happened in our lives, everything that's happening in Israel is all backed up by scriptures. And you used several of my scriptures. You did. I don't think that, I got plenty of my own. I don't think it's going to hurt anyone to hear it twice. But what I'd like to do is I enjoy this, 4 short video clips. It takes me a while. I got to make the transition from Hebrew to English. But you know what's going to happen? Pretty soon I'm going to come here. We're going to do this all in Hebrew. That may be a little bit of a far stretch. Can we play the first video clip, please? Got the message, huh? Two personal testimonies. How did this whole thing with Israel? I grew up in a fairly assimilated, liberal family in Chicago. Yes, the Cubs didn't win the World Series last year. Even since 1983, when we moved to Israel, I run Cub Blue. Anyhow, whatever, irrelevant. But give that man a, what's it called? A gold, no, a gold ribbon, is it? I don't remember, whatever. Gold medal, okay. And here's what happened. I grew up basically in a assimilated Jewish home. We would light the candles on Friday night, and then we would make hamotzi, and then we would eat a good big piece of ham. Our Yom Kippur fast was like this. We went to synagogue at night. We went to synagogue in the morning. We came back, and we broke our fast at about 11:30. And again, ham, cheese, all the things which it's so cool you don't eat anymore. Oh, but you're being legalistic. Goodness gracious. When people say that to me, oh, but you Jews are so legalistic. I'm like, are you serious? Okay, what do you mean legalistic? Okay, you're observing pagan, man-made holidays. If you're going to observe man-made holidays, we say in Hebrew, alachat kama v'kama, then even magnanimously more so, logically, you should have respect and observe God's holidays. Okay, so in 1967, on June 6th, I was on the swim team in high school. I was in good shape then. By the way, a lot of this is your fault. And I got to blame someone, right? I'm not going to take the responsibility. But you keep on stuffing me. Linda has me at her house. I've been eating from her refrigerator. She goes in the refrigerator. She says, Eliezer, you're not eating anything. You're going to waste away. I'm like, Linda, do I look like I'm going to waste away? So I'm sorry. It's just like a super comedy routine. June 6, 1967, I'm riding my Schwinn bicycle. And those of us who are old enough to remember, those were the days when Schwinn bicycles actually had fenders. And I carried with me a transistor radio, which a lot of young people don't know what a transistor radio is. And also an announcement comes on. It says that war broke out in the Middle East between Israel and her neighbors. I remember it so well. I got off of my bicycle, and I turned my head towards heaven, and I said, God, if you make my people victorious and we defeat our enemies, I promise that one day I will come and I will live in your land. And what's funny is if you showed me a globe of the world, I wouldn't even be able to find it. And that's because we believe that God puts a spark in each person, and when the time comes, the calling comes, they come home. And I believe that you are part of that calling. I mean, I don't know, Pastor Nick, we may make an exception, but we have had an amazing time together. We've had some serious fellowship over delicious pizza. And the second thing that happened to me that really transformed my life, I think we can all look back and see certain instances in our lives that really transformed us and made us the people who we are. And the second thing that happened was the rabbi of our synagogue in Chicago was part of the Kindersport. And Kindersport were German Jewish children that were taken out at the beginning of the war or prior to the war, sent to England, sent to Sweden, which was neutral during the war. And he came to America, and he became a Reform rabbi. He happened to be exceptionally good friends with Elie Wiesel. And this is how I went to religious school. I'd walk in the front door, walk out the back door, go to the corner delicatessen, get a milkshake and a corned beef sandwich, and I'd have it timed perfectly so that when the bell went off, I came back in through the back door, went to the front door. My father or mother picked me up. How was religious school? Oh, I had a great time. It was wonderful. But the day that Elie Wiesel came, I went and I listened to his testimony about being a young boy living through his experience in Auschwitz. I was impacted in a way. I need to stop wandering. I am a wandering Jew. What do you want? Especially when I'm in America. When I'm home, I don't wander. Anyhow, and his testimony just drilled itself into every part of my body. And I remember him describing his experience, which is in, I think, his first book called Night. And he describes that they have a lineup, the SS bring all the people together to count, have a count up, I don't know what the expression is. Can't speak English, can't speak Hebrew, I don't know where. And asks everyone, tells everyone, I'm going to make an example. If you try to escape, this is what's going to happen. And he takes a boy, Elie Wiesel's age, takes him up to the gallows, he puts the rope around him, and Elie Wiesel describes how he watches the life being sucked out of that young man. And Elie Wiesel at that time said to himself, "Where is God?" And he heard himself answer, "God is on the gallows with that boy." We can sit and we can talk about that forever. It is forever, ever etched in my memory. Elie Wiesel, by the way, passed away about 6, 7, 8 months ago. And if you look at Jewish history, the continuum of Jewish history, I'll tell you something. It's so tragic, so unbelievably tragic. I don't know if I didn't live in the present time where we live in the land where, for the first time in 2,000 years, I get to carry and use one of these passports. You better believe every time I fly to Europe, I don't use my American passport. I use my Israeli passport. Because I'm going to say to Europe, I don't care what you do, what you have done, what you're doing now, what you're about to do, I am forever an Israeli. Okay, let's go. I already, you get the message, right? I'm not going to even describe this, but some of the scriptures that I absolutely love, because the Bible prescribes really, really accurately. These prophets are amazing. I may say something that's really controversial. It got me into trouble in Denmark, but it seems a lot of people think that they're prophets. And I'm like, seriously? How do you stand up next to these people? And Hosea, is that where I am? Who knows? Yeah. Prophesied with other people that the Jews were going to be scattered out of the land of Israel. There they were going to remain for many days, years, centuries, basically 2 millennium minus a couple years. And then in this amazing, miraculous happening, God's going to do something he's never done with anyone else. He's going to restore an ancient people to their land. Every day they come. Do you know that when the Ben Gurion airport was temporarily shut down during the Gaza war, you know who landed there? A plane load of new immigrants from the United States. So why is he doing this magnificent miracle? He's not doing it for me. And people often say to me, well, you're Jewish, you're Israeli. Of course you're going to feel this way. But he's not doing it for me. God is using Israel, presently Judah, but hopefully in the rest of Israel, to show he's using us as a conduit through which he is showing that he's God. And notice how Isaiah prophesied Judah's going to come back, but Israel's also going to come back. How did he know this? I guess he was a prophet. Isaiah says, who heard anything like this, who saw anything like this, as a land born in one day, as a nation born at once, that Zion both experienced birth pangs and bore her children. And I always ask, how many women have given birth? I asked that question, like I mentioned the other day in Finland, and all the men raised their hands. I changed translators very quickly. So you can feel Isaiah saying, you're laughing? You really think God could have a woman go through 9 months of pregnancy, labor, and delivery in one day? Yes, God can even do that. That's how he created the modern nation of Israel. Look, there was a lot that led up to it, but the United Nations and Flushing Meadows, not the Jewish people, the nations, the Gentile nations of the world voted for the establishment of the state of Israel. And what is amazing about that is if we were to take that vote today in the United Nations, I bet you we wouldn't get this many votes. God put it in the heart of the Gentile nations. They saw the banner. Where did they come from? everywhere. As we say in Hebrew, Ufaratzta yama kedma tzafona v'negba. What does negba sound like? The Negev. Yama, the sea. We won't do the other two. And here's what's so amazing about this scripture. Do not be afraid, for I'm with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north. Who's in the north? Russia, former Soviet Union. Listen to these words. Give them up. Amazing. I have friends from the former Soviet Union who said to me they needed travel permits just to go from one town to another town. Who in their right mind thought that suddenly the wall would melt in 1989, that communism, God had it with communist Russia. Soviet Union it just melted away. Because God said, your time is up. It's time for my people to come home from the north. You can't hold them back. What are we going to do? It eats my kishkas. You know what kishkas are, right? Okay, as long as you don't eat mine. You could eat animal kishkas, not mine. It eats me alive when I hear the accusation that Israel is an apartheid nation. Seriously? I hope next time I come back I hear people saying, seriously? There's every color there. There's every shade of every color. We speak, if you take 40, 50 people and you bring them together in a street in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, probably come up with either they or their parents came from 40 or 50 different countries speaking 40 or 50 different languages. If you walk into our restaurants, into our hospitals, Arab doctors are treating Israeli Jews. Israeli Jewish doctors are treating Arabs. It drives me nuts. Come on, folks. The world has gone mad. The world has lost the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. And I am so tired of everyone saying, there are two sides to every story. There are not two sides to every story. There is right and there's wrong. We are in the right, they are in the wrong. And I will convert. So how are all these diverse cultures and languages and people that come from, remember it said God scattered us all over the world? Well, when he regathered all the scattered ones, by the way, everyone here is a friend of Israel? I should have asked this first, but are there any terrorists in the audience? If so, would you please stand up, identify yourself? I've got a couple guards in the front. If you stand up, identify yourself, you have two choices. Either they'll escort you out of the room or they'll shoot you. How are they going to, what's the common language? How do you get the beat of Israel? That's why a lot of you want to learn Hebrew. Good luck. It's because you can't understand the beat of the country if you don't have the language. And what are all these people going to speak? Zephaniah says when you come home, you're going to speak a pure language, which implies that there is an impure language. And that's because when the Jews wandered from one country to other countries in Europe, accepted here, kicked out, accepted, persecuted, accepted, thrown out, Hebrew became mixed in with all the European languages, and an impure form of Hebrew developed. It's called Yiddish and Ladino. So all those, European Jews, they came back. Most of them spoke Yiddish. They didn't speak Hebrew. But when they came home, just like Zephaniah said, the impure form of Hebrew just melted away. And we all communicate in Hebrew. with so many different accents that some people, the way they speak, you go, eh? What'd you say? Says it again. Eh? Was that Hebrew? Okay. How are we going to, what are we going to do commerce with? Trade. Okay? Going to use the God Almighty dollar? Are we going to, no, this is prior to the Eurozone? No. Prophecy says we're going to use the shekel. How many of you haven't been to Israel? Okay, people who've been to Israel? Shh. I have two 20 shekel bills. Okay? I am being very, very honest. And I will, they're up. We're going to have, what do you call it when you sell? We're going to have an auction, and we're going to start at $1,000 per bill. Hey, the people who've been to Israel, I told you don't talk. And we use the shekel, 20 gera, 20 shekels, 25 shekels, and the 15 shekels will be a manna to you. You know what the manna is? That's the stuff that fell in the desert from heaven. Right, okay? That's because, and on Friday a double portion. No, that's because on Friday in Israel, there's a special miracle. If you go out right before Shabbat, all of a sudden, it's raining a double portion of 20 shekel bills. Isn't that true? Okay. And to me, the most amazing, the names of the cities. The names of the cities. What does God promise? That when you come back and Israel puts their hands in the soil, the cities are not only going to be rebuilt in the exact same places that they were, they're going to be infinitely better than they ever were. Okay? And remember those of us, grammar school, if some of us can, remember that far back, you remember how you'd have this mix and match where you'd have words on this side and you have words on this side and you draw a line, okay? Well, where the cities are today and where they were in ancient times, it is the easiest test that you will ever take. Because all you got to do straight across on the map. Because the modern cities are exactly in the same place as the ancient cities. Can I play number 3? Video number 3. This was made by a church in Colorado who met me in, you know Resurrection Fellowship? Oh, Colorado? It's not Colorado. It's Loveland, Colorado. That's good. You're from Loveland? Okay, so who cares? No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm sorry. This is the Israeli in me, okay? Seriously, if I hear one more person saying I'm sorry or I apologize, I'm going to go nuts. Because the second I get off the plane, if let's say pastor's over there and I'm going in that direction, going in this direction, you're saying, excuse me, I apologize. I'm like, what are you apologizing for? Be Israeli. Just come knock us in the shoulder and say, what the heck are you doing in my way? Anyhow, church in Loveland, Colorado, this is really serving Israel, just like Hayovale. Jews on the earth, just so that they could their ashes could just lie here, lay here for no purpose, no reason at all? Is it just souls that are gone? What purpose would you put all these physical bodies on the earth so that they could just be exterminated? Welcome to my Christian friends around the world. and we are standing in the Jewish ghetto in Krakow, Poland. And as you can see, the wall behind us, this really represents the kind of wall that Jews were forced to live behind in ghettos during World War II, so that they could be easily gathered and sent off either to a transit camp, which ultimately led to their being sent to an extermination camp, or directly to an extermination camp. Being here together with Christians represents a reconciliation between what I call the older brother and the younger brother, between the church and Judaism. And if you read through the prophecies, you realize that Christians worldwide that believe in the Word of God have a biblical mandate to bless the Jewish people. So coming here to Auschwitz, which is the largest Jewish graveyard, in fact, it may be the largest graveyard in the world, and there's a spot at where we stand together and we link together. And there are 4 monument stones, and behind that is a shallow grave. And in that shallow grave are the ashen remains of approximately 1 million Jews. And I feel that if we can stand in that spot together and pray and join together in declaring the evil, the satanic spirit, where 1 million people were murdered, if there we can join together in unity, then we can create a powerful coalition together of Jews and Christians that will stand for Israel, will stand for God's word, will stand for the prophetic promises of the Bible. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were exceedingly dry. Come, breathe from the 4 winds and breathe into these murdered, that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me. A breath entered them, and they came to life and stood upon their feet, a vast army. Therefore prophesy and say to them, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them, and then I'm going to bring you back to the land of Israel. One nation, one people. I think there was another pastor here who recited the very same passage from Ezekiel. Have any of you been to Auschwitz or Birkenau? Okay. This is a spot which to me represents the historical tragedy of Judah. 1 million plus Jews lay under these 2 pits that are there. And you're just left numb, simply numb. What do I do with this? And the first time I was there, actually every time I was there, I went up to Har Bracha, which was, as you know, where Hayovel has their base camp. And I brought a plastic bag, and let's say there were 30 people in the group that went with me. I would put 30 stones from Har Bracha in a plastic bag. And one by one, we would go up and put the stones on the monument. You know, my first experience with Christians was when I was in grammar school. There was a Catholic school across the street from me. And I had books, this was before the backpack day. Books like this, they always fell. You couldn't figure out how to pick them up. And 3 boys from the Catholic school came knocked the books out of my arm, and they said, "Hey, you dirty kike, you killed my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." So you have to realize it is an absolute miracle in God's ultimate sense of humor that I've been speaking in churches for the last 25 years. God uses us in the most amazing, amazing ways. The unifying experience of being in this place of evil, coming together, Jew and Gentile, the unifying experience of being in these type of fellowships. Hey, folks, that's the future. It's not, as you said, the church that says Israel defied God, was not obedient, and the Jews were rejected by God, and God's new chosen is the church. That is what sits at the very root of almost 2,000 years of unbelievable, murderous persecution of us. And as far as I'm concerned, I look in your faces and I see you nodding and almost nobody even falling asleep. And I know if you could, tomorrow you would all get on the plane, fill up a whole plane. And I'll meet you there, and each one of you can do that symbolic act of reconciliation, and then you come to Israel. Okay, somebody outside, we'll start taking deposits. But look at, there's a difference between saying you love Israel and the Jewish people. You can't just throw it out. Okay? You got to mean it. You got to back it up with action. And that's what this fellowship is all about. I want you to know that when I plan a trip to come to the States, I have like 35 speaking engagements. I probably have to ask about 200 places to get those engagements. I mean, Stephanie, how many places did you ask that said no? 5? Oh, that's all? Okay. And I actually have spoken to pastors who said, oh, we love the Jewish people. We love Israel. We can't have you because you're not Messianic. I'm like, seriously? And you know what? When I was representing an organization and I was collecting funds, I didn't burn any bridges. But now I'm confrontational. You know what I said to these pastors I spoke to on the phone? I said, you're not reading your New Testament. Because there it says, Yeshua says to these, the least of my brethren ye have done unto me. You reject me, you reject him. So, believe me, I recognize the difference between those who just spew meaningless words and those that actually back it up. And I know where I am right now. Replacement theology means I understand why the Catholic Church didn't want anyone to read the Bible, because they may discover the truth. And I got news for you. I think that a lot of the non-Catholic church, they still discourage their people from reading the Bible because they're afraid. Because if they really read the Bible and they taught the Bible, they wouldn't be coming to people like you and saying, hey, what is this Israel thing? What is this thing you got with the Jews? How many people have experienced that? Okay, from your own families. Well, Israel is an incredibly advanced country. I want to ask the medical community researchers to develop a pill. And I'll bring it by the millions that you can hand out to everyone to straighten their brains out. Because, hello, God's promise, remember, he's not doing it for us. He's doing it to show his glory. Isaiah 49 says, and this is what you need to every single person here is a goodwill ambassador. You cannot let people say, you have to respond. You have to get in their face. You got to be Israeli. Stop saying, excuse me. Stop apologizing. You have nothing to apologize for. And this is one of the verses you can give them. Shall a woman forget her sucking child from having mercy on the child of her womb? Yes, we can actually live in a world which is so evil that a mother will forget to breastfeed her newborn baby. But it doesn't matter how, to what level of evil humanity descends. God, will never, ever forget you, O Israel. Okay, we'll go on a little bit. You don't believe it yet? Where can you go in the world and see a desolate country that Mark Twain came to and said, why would anyone want to live in this malaria-infested land? And you see it from 1906, the first group of immigrants that came to settle the first community in Tel Aviv. Become this and this. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem at night. Those who came, whom Jacob caused to take root, Israel flourished and blossomed. They filled the face of the world with fruit. I used to go to San Diego when my parents were alive, walk into an A&P, and I would find Israeli fruits and vegetables on the shelves. And I'm like, okay, why are you doing that when you've got citrus groves right up the street? So they say to me, well, it's because everybody knows that the Israeli fruits and vegetables are tastier than the ones we grow right up the street. Desert and wasteland shall rejoice over them, and the plain shall rejoice and shall blossom like a rose. Who's this? Any of you been to the Frank home? Okay, good, one. Do I see another person? It's okay, you can lie. Everybody raise their hand. No. This actually, Anne Frank was deported to Bergen-Belsen. By the way, did you see the names of all? Okay, there are about 4 million names there. I found my mother's entire extended family. She didn't tell us until shortly before she passed away that her extended family was all murdered in either Dachau or Bergen-Belsen because they're German, they're Berliners. And I went to Bergen-Belsen. I picked up these 2 pictures of Anne Frank. And when I went through her house, went around the corner, there's a statue of Anne Frank. And I thought I'd do something really special. So I went into a flower shop and I asked for 18 multicolored tulips. And why 18? Chai, right, life. And the shop owner takes out the bouquet of 18 tulips. Beautiful. And I turn to him and I say, wow, it's really true. Holland is the tulip capital of the world. And he says to me, well, tulips are not in season. These tulips are imported from Israel. Yeah. Now look at Tel Aviv. These are my parents of blessed memory. This is the first time they visited Israel in 1968. And the tallest building, not only in Tel Aviv, but the tallest building in all the Middle East was the Shalom Tower. Okay, now if you go to Tel Aviv, you can't even find it. Because there are so many multi-story buildings that make up the skyline of Tel Aviv. It's simply unbelievable. I've never seen any country that has more building cranes. Okay, we'll skip that. The fruits and vegetables, all year round, they look like this. The flowers, the fields. It's amazing. I can take you to spots in the Negev desert, and you can scoop up sand that is so dry, you open up your fingers, there's not a single grain left in your hand. And I can take you 3 or 4 meters away. Come on, folks, you got to stop with this feet thing. Okay? And what's a mile? Okay? What is with you stubborn Americans? You've got this crazy system of measurement that nobody else in the world uses. It makes no sense. Can anybody tell me how many feet there are in a mile? Wow, you're smarter than I thought. But seriously, guess what? Guess how many meters there are in a kilometer? Yes, it's logical. No wonder you all are so confused. Okay, so what was I saying beforehand? I have a senior moment. Oh, yes, and I go like 3 meters over, and there are the most amazing fruit trees. Okay, what's happening here? Hey, you Yovelniks, did the Wallers tell you that when the Jewish farmers first thought about planting vineyards in Samaria, they asked Italian experts and French experts to come in, and they said, hey, well, this land, it's not the right land to grow vineyards. You want to know something? They were wrong, because God says, you shall yet plant vineyards on the hills of Samaria. And they're winning wine contests in Europe. And I love it that you come and you work in the fields. It's amazing, because every once in a while I'll drive when all you are in the fields sweating crazy. I'll open up my window a crack and I'll say, you're doing a great job. It's nice and cool inside here. I mean, it's just, but Dad, this is just like, and you're going to come back and do it again. You pay for your airfare. You pay for how you avail to stay in these crummy conditions. You go out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you pick the grapes. And who was Linda, who said, I think she didn't want to take a shower when she came back because the grapes were still underneath her fingernails. But I assume by now she has. Look at, you throw this in people, replacement theology people as well. The greatest nations in the history of the world, they are nada. They are no more. You can do a study on the amazing power that each one of these nation empires, but the most persecuted people, the people who everyone stepped on, survived. Because God said, I'm going to keep myself a remnant. Do I sound Southern when I'm talking now? I'm going to keep myself a remnant. And with that remnant, they're going to survive. They're going to come back to the land. And they're going to thrive. You know what this is? This is a Syrian baby who lost her parents, being taken care of, brought into Israel, being taken care of by an IDF soldier. You know, this is this Iranian journalist. She made the mistake of, I don't know, writing a little bit about Israel or writing something on an Israeli blog, and her life was threatened. She got out of Iran. Guess who granted her political asylum? Israel. That is the true Israel. That is the Israel which is a light unto the nations. And why does the world want to destroy us? Well, it's because a man by the name of Abraham and his descendants told the world, you got to get rid of your statues. Okay? You got to believe in an invisible, all-powerful, sovereign God. And man does not want to this very day, get rid of the idols, including himself. Okay? Me. Everything revolves around me. Whereas Abraham's message to the world is everything revolves around God. So how do you get rid of the message? You get rid of the people. But it's not going to happen. In the museum in Auschwitz is this statue. This is what was left of European Jewry after the war in 1945. Those that survived were destroyed physically. They were destroyed emotionally, skin and bone, humiliated. No purpose to live. Most losing part, if not all, of their families. You want to know what I think is the real miracle of Israel? How is it that this, in 1948, managed to win the War of Independence in 1945, managed to win the War of Independence in 1948 and beat 5 neighboring Arab armies? How do you go from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high? Welcome to Jewish history. This is who we are. We rebound. We recover. We jump through the hurdles. And that is the genius that describes why Israel is so successful today. Why Israel has more companies on the NASDAQ than any other country, all of Europe combined. How do we go from that to this and to this? I mean, it's mind-boggling. And I have a good friend who lives on Kibbutz Lavi up north. And he was an F-15 pilot and also flew a helicopter that picked up soldiers. I don't know what you call that in English. Well, yeah, a transport. And he trained, as do many Israeli pilots, in New Mexico, Arizona desert, because there they actually have land. And we don't have too much land, and they want us to give more away. And his friend that he trained with came to Israel, and he got permission to take him into the Israeli Air Force base called Hatzerim. And he got in the cockpit of an F-15, and he looked at our friend and he said, I don't understand. I don't recognize about 60 or 70% of the avionics in this plane. So my friend reluctantly said to him, the truth of the matter is that when we get it, the planes from you, we strip out about 50, 60%. We put our own avionics in because they're better. A nation of 6 million as opposed to a nation of 300 million? Because God is with us. God is protecting us. And what's beautiful is now we get to look at the prophets like Amos. It says, once you are planted again in your land, you shall never again be plucked up out of that land. This is what we want. We pray for peace. We sincerely want peace. Our politicians have made far-ranging concessions, always to be turned down because they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. There's going to never be peace by throwing signatures onto a piece of paper, the only way there's going to ever be peace is to do exactly what the Arab educational system is not doing. It's to teach peace. Which means they're not going to do it. God's going to have to perform another miracle. He's going to have to change the hearts of our enemies from hate to love. Because once they learn to love us, their lives will be abundantly blessed. Pretty soon, going to go for this day. Because that means we're going to all be united in one nation. No borders. And I'm not talking about like the European Union. I'm talking about Israel coming together as one. So, when you come to Israel, I will give you Hebrew lessons at a very reasonable discount. But I need to tell you something about the Israeli drivers. Be careful, because we're Meshuggahs. And this is the amazing miracle. But to me, the one picture that I use just to magnify the unbelievable significance of what we have gone through as a people and the meaning and the miracle of modern day Israel. Do you know how many people, how many generations of Jews prayed to be able to come home and never had the opportunity? You know how many American Jews say to me, "Why would you move to Israel? What's with you? Isn't it good enough for you in America?" You know what my response is? If you look at the continuum of Jewish history, you have to be out of your mind not to move to Israel. That's it. Aren't we lucky to be on the right side today and not the left? I just want to say one more thing, and it's the scripture that both you and I shared about in Ezekiel. And it's the scripture where it says that when Israel comes home, they're going to be an exceedingly great army. You know, that's one of the scriptures that I read when I'm at that spot in Birkenau. 15 minutes? Wow, I was planning on only taking 3. Let's start the negotiations. When I am in Birkenau, I finally figured out why it is. You know how when you fly into Israel, those who've been there, you can't wait to see the coastline of Israel? You don't want to miss one sliver of eating up that land. For years, I have been going up to Jerusalem on Route 1 or 443 by Modi'in, and I keep on getting shivers up my spine. And I just don't, I mean, I've done it thousands of times. You think I would have become immune to doing it. No, there is no immunity. It just, every time I get shiver going up to Jerusalem. And I finally realized what it is. And this is why we win the wars. And this is why we put our own avionics into a plane supplied by the greatest air force, other than the Israeli Air Force. I hope there are no pilots here. But it's because we don't fight like a nation of 6 million. We fight like a nation that is carrying the memories of all of those who preceded us and didn't have the opportunity that I have to live in Israel and the opportunity that you have to get on a plane and come whenever you want. I will never, ever complain about the price of a ticket. Because the Jews of Europe were a mere 4 hours in the air between the gas chambers and the land of Israel. Think about it. We carry all of them with us. We fight with their energy. We fight like a nation of hundreds of millions. Okay, one more video, and I always like to end on a positive note. I judiciously, I don't know if that's the right word, love to read the stories of righteous Gentiles. People in Europe who risked their lives, the lives of their loved ones, to rescue, to hide Jews. And I want to point out that there are thousands of Catholic priests, thousands of not Presbyterian, Protestant pastors, and in short, there are thousands of Christians who were also murdered in the camps because they refused to cooperate with Nazi Germany. And I feel wherever I go, I need to tell the story of at least one of them, because their memory, the fact that they risked their lives and their families' lives, something that absolutely can never be ignored. And I want to show this because, you know, we live in a world of, 6 billion people, whatever, and we each can say, what significance can my life have? Just one person. And the truth of the matter is that each single one of us has the capability to do incredible things. We just have to find and fulfill our potential. So let's play this last video.
Not so long ago, it was Mother's Day here. So today, I would like us to celebrate that holiday in the name of some of the most anguished mothers in the world. The Jewish mothers who had to part with their children during those terrible times. And let us reflect on those Polish women who took the Jewish children in and brought them up as their own. Risking their lives every day and every hour in the process. They loved those children so much that when the war ended, they could hardly bear to part with them. So let us give thought to those mothers.
Thank you for your patience. And now we're going to have a little bit of fun. Pastor told me it's not included in my time, it's separate. And if he didn't, I'm making it up. So, what I'd like to do is introduce you to this amazing Hebrew calligraphy artist. She's my wife. I get to see her on Monday. We've been married for 41 years. I have no idea how she's managed it with me, but hey, maybe she'll come one time and she can give a lecture on that. So let's have an introduction to my wife and her artwork, and we are truly blessed because now she pretty much supports the family since I retired from organized work. So, introduction to Ellen Miller Braun.
Eliezer and I were born and raised in Chicago. We decided to follow our hearts and our dream and come home to Israel with our children in 1983. Eliezer and I live in a tranquil community northwest of Jerusalem. My artwork reflects my love for my wonderful growing family and my love of living in Israel. I wake up in the morning and am blessed to take deep breaths of the air of Israel and step outside and walk where our forefathers and mothers walked, perhaps even an exact spot where they walked. I'm in awe of it and love every moment. As you can see, each piece of art here is imbued with scriptures. Each warms my heart spiritually, centering my soul, giving me a feeling of peace and home in our land, connecting and tying me to our biblical past while living in the present. Any piece of art you bring home with you can give you that same special feeling, speaking to you from your walls just as they do from mine. What is microcalligraphy? Calligraphy, writing, micro, that's very small. Using this tiny lettering, I create these flowing designs. A final creation is a picture completed entirely with words. I coined the term microcalligraphy to express my exacting work. Tiny letters and words blending together to form the design and figures on the paper. The original art form called micrography started in the 7th to 9th centuries in Israel in Tiberias by scribes known as Masoretim, traditionalists, as they kept track of the words they were working on while compiling the first Jewish concordancia, a book that lists every word and phrase, how many times it was written, and its location with proper pronunciation everywhere in scriptures. It was time-consuming work. To keep track of their progress, these scribes wrote these words in tiny lettering in geometric shapes in the margins of their paper, and voila, the original micrography. Throughout the centuries, this art form has developed from geometrical shapes to what you see today. My artwork has unique styles compared to other artists whose work is written in black ink, creating black and white pictures, while some artists write in black ink on sections of watercolor paintings. I paint colorful words inscribed letter by letter using a calligraphy pen dipped into a spectrum of watercolor paints, patiently spending anywhere from 1 month to nearly a year creating an entire artistic composition. I also use gematria, or Jewish numerology, in my designs. In Hebrew, each letter of the alphabet possesses numerical value. The first letter, Aleph, equals 1, Bet, 2, etc. The word Chai, life, equals the number 18. 18 always signifies life. I use gematria to calculate the numerical equivalents of letters, words, or phrases written in my artwork. I also use gematria to determine how many times I'll write the text for a specific piece. That also determines how tiny or very tiny I'll have to write. There are a lot of logistics involved in creating each composition. Some pieces take up to 11 months to create. This intertwining weaving of words and Jewish numerology adds deep spirituality to each of these particular images. Creating a composition with gematria, as far as I know, is a unique trait of my artwork. I've not seen it in other microcalligraphy artists' works. So, There's the colorful hand-painted writing and the gematria that create something both artistically and spiritually uplifting. A question often asked is how I began doing microcalligraphy. Before this, I created soft sculptures of whimsical Hasidic figures and biblical and Israeli political characters. They are very popular both in Israel and around the world. But then I was given a new direction. One day I woke up and the need to do this descended and enveloped me. I understood that a gift was being shared with me. I also knew I was very busy and didn't have time for a new venture or adventure right then. So I pushed it out of mind. 2 weeks later, friends from California called Eliezer. They wanted to start marketing biblical micrography in the U.S. and asked for his help locating sources in Israel. Hearing this conversation, I knew I was being given a second chance. I took it. How often do second chances come along? The rest, as you can see, is history. I took it and continued to take one step at a time, learning something new on this journey from each piece. I'm thankful every day for this wonderful blessing. It's a true gift. People are often interested in our life and lifestyle and how scriptures and these pictures connect to us today. I'll use the cycle of the year to help explain. Here's parting of the Red Sea, which reminds us of Passover and how we sit telling and retelling the story of the Exodus. This creation evolved by writing the entire book of Exodus. We're constantly connected to our past, feeling as though we were there by reliving and retelling the story every year, making it real for today. As you can see, I love what I do. I love living in Israel. Song of Solomon is the first of all of these microcalligraphy artworks that I created. It expresses God's love for his people. Song of Solomon is actually read on the Shabbat that falls during Passover. After Passover, we celebrate a holiday for modern-day Israel, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. Here we have the design that combines the flag of Israel today with the outline of the map of today's Israel. It's created using the words of the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva, the hope. The focus of this image and the anthem is the land of Zion. Jerusalem is highlighted in the center with the Star of David created using the ancient walls of Jerusalem instead of the standard blue star. I wrote Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, 156 times because the letters of the word Zion, Zion, break down letter by letter and equal the number 156. After celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut, we continue to the next holiday, Shavuot, or Pentecost. This piece is Tree of Life. Its design is created using the entire book of Ruth. The flowers and the grass are the book of Ruth, reaching King David here at the bottom of the tree, under and supporting her roots. Here's an opportunity to explain the difference between my microcalligraphy artwork and other artists' micrography who execute a watercolor painting of Ruth, cutting sheaves of wheat. The piece an entire watercolor painting. But where's the writing? Only Ruth's braid contains text, written in black ink. Perhaps the text continues in the border as well. A beautiful picture, but only a small portion with text. Here, the entire text is the composition, and the composition is the text. The tree trunk is filled with the words sung as the Torah scrolls are returned to the ark after the week's portion is read. She's a tree of life to those who hold on to her, and her supporters are joyous and given peace. Encircling the entire tree is the blessing of Sarah, Rachel, Rebecca, and Leah that continues with the beautiful blessing for the entire family. Woman of valor. The words of Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 create these biblical women. We start with the matriarch Sarah. Miriam is next to her, depicted singing praise to God after crossing through the parted Red Sea, the Passover story. After Passover, we fast approach the holiday of Shavuot, during which the book of Ruth is read in the synagogue Shavuot morning. Here is Ruth gathering sheaves of wheat. Continuing is Queen Esther. The story of Purim shines through her, a story of redemption. Purim is celebrated a few weeks before Passover. Then there's the prophetess Devorah, the fairest of judges and guiding light for all of us throughout history. May these women of valor bring a lifetime of continuing inspiration to each of us. It's written 30 times, 12 plus 18. 12, the age a girl begins her journey to become a woman of valor in her own right, plus life, chai, 18. If you've been to Jerusalem, you've seen the beauty of what has been built or rebuilt. But you know that the wall, the Kotel, is what remains after the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago on the 9th of Av, the Jewish date that falls in July or August. 70 names of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, written in gold, hovers over the ancient western wall. Jerusalem has 70 different unique spiritual names. I wrote these names in glowing gold microcalligraphy to create the word Jerusalem here. May Jerusalem of gold be completely rebuilt soon in our days. The original of this design is actually an embroidered satchel that I made for our second son-in-law's prayer shawl, then created this artwork from it. Jerusalem Star of David, Psalms 122. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Psalms 126, verses from Zechariah and Isaiah and more. Isaiah 62:1. I've set watchmen upon the walls of Jerusalem. Take no rest until he makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. This intricate piece depicts the rebuilt temple in the heart of the picture. Jerusalem, forever the center of the world, the center of our hearts. As you know, the Jewish year is a cycle. We've shared the holidays, starting here with Passover, reaching the saddest day, the 9th of Av, and the destruction of the temples. But then our attention turns again to joy and new beginnings, a new year, Rosh Hashanah, that will, God willing, bring us many blessings. Verses from the deep, heartfelt prayers recited on Rosh Hashanah, the new year, create these pomegranates. I inscribe these blessings 17 times. May you merit the fulfillment of the 18th time, the number that signifies life, this and every new year. We begin in Shabbat and every holiday with candle lighting. These graceful Shabbat candles are created with Proverbs 31:10 through 31, woman of valor. The flames are created using the beautiful blessing for the physical and spiritual health of the family. The halos of light surrounding the flames are the blessings for the children. The halo on the right is the blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh for sons. The left halo, the daughter's blessing of Sarah, Rachel, Rebecca, and Leah. I'm so blessed to bestow these blessings on our children and grandchildren every week. Down the center flows the blessing recited while lighting the Shabbat candles. I mentioned how blessed we feel to live in our home in Israel. This piece, Birkat HaBayit, blessing of the home, is a beautiful view from our dining room window. This is what I see each day as I say my prayers standing at this window facing the direction of Jerusalem. I ask myself, what can I do with this beautiful view? This is it. They dwelt in safety, each man under his vine and under his fig tree. And they built houses and inhabit them, and they planted vineyards and eat the fruit of them. And my chosen ones shall long enjoy the work of their hands, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. May your families and your homes be so blessed. The strong and proud eagle. Isaiah 40, comfort, comfort my people. The letters of the word love, ahava, equal the number 13. This entire chapter is written 13 times to create these cliffs and valleys. 13, ahava, God's love for his people. The last verse of the chapter on wings of eagles is written 208 times, creating the eagle. 208 is also divisible by 13, but leaves a remainder of 3. The number 3 in Judaism represents strength, permanence, and that this shall come to pass. Amen, which in Hebrew also has 3 letters. Ezekiel 36. The shofar is blowing, the ruined cities are rebuilt, the fields tilled and sown. The prophecy is coming to life as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's spirits watch over us. Written 50 times, reminding us of the Jubilee year. Looking like an ancient mosaic found in archaeological digs, Jacob's blessing to Judah creates Lion of Judah. The blessing from Genesis is written 100 times. 100 is a number that represents power. How appropriate for Judah, the future king. There are specific designated blessings for before and after eating food. The blessing after eating bread is the longest. This composition was created using the entire grace after meals recited after eating bread. Originally, this was designed for the cover of the booklets placed on the tables at our oldest daughter's wedding. The tomb of the patriarchs. Oh, the text is the story of the Machpelah cave. It's purchased by Abraham and the burial of the beloved matriarch Sarah, written here in order to create this powerful image 6 times. An inscription for each one of our 6 matriarchs and patriarchs buried here. If you've been to Hebron, you are seeing and walking on living biblical history, just as the artwork represents. This piece is a memorial to all those throughout history who have suffered through the hands of our ever-present enemies. It is specifically for 3 children, our neighbors, who lost their lives in a terrorist attack in our neighborhood on a Sunday night 2 weeks before Purim, February 2002. Throughout the centuries, Jews have prayed for the day when we will return to Israel from all 4 corners of the earth, when the light of redemption will be upon us. We see the passages from Isaiah, passages that speak of comfort and the day of redemption, forming the people dancing and streaming towards Jerusalem rebuilt, the temple rebuilt. We see the twinkling stars in the sky, reminding us of the blessing. The day will come when we will be as many as the stars in the sky. All these passages bring me comfort and peace of mind in difficult times. Psalms 18. King David wrote Psalms 18, Chai, life, to thank God for teaching him to be victorious in battle. It's a song of deliverance. Just as David rose up successfully against his enemies, this tank represents our present struggle against those who want to destroy us. Psalms 18, which means life, is written 3 times, which again is a number that represents strength and guidance to successfully fight our enemies. May we always continue to be guided and delivered safely from the battle against those who are determined to destroy us. Blessing Israel. I will bless them that bless you, and in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. This design is of the famous Israeli cactus, the sabra, in beautiful bloom, prickly and tough on the outside, sweet on the inside, just like Israelis are known to be. This is actually the only piece designed with both Hebrew and English. The almond tree, Jeremiah 1:11 through 12. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, What do you see, Jeremiah? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. And the Lord said to me, You have seen well, for I hasten my word to accomplish it. As the verses express, Jeremiah saw the branch of an almond tree bear with no bloom, symbolizing the fact that the prophecy God shared with Jeremiah would come to fruition quickly. The destruction of the temple, if God's word was not heeded, but also rebuilding in the future. The almond branch in bloom represents the continuation of God's promise and prophecy. When the Jewish nation, Am Yisrael, will bloom, returning from all 4 corners of the earth to the rebuilt temple and ruined cities rebuilt. May we enjoy the beauty of the blooming almond tree as well as the blooming of the fulfilled prophecies soon in our days. Amen. Dancing for joy, the words from Purim read from the scroll of Esther. LaYehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason ve'ikar. Dance across the page, along with these carefree figures representing the joy and fun experienced on this wondrous holiday. This brings the holiday cycle we began full circle, as Purim is 1 month before Passover. My very first paper cut, surrounded by the ancient fortified walls and magnificent gateways into the city of Jerusalem, the majestic third temple rises. The 10 Commandments, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Verses depicting the land, the Eretz, Zvat, Chalav, Dvash, the land flowing with milk and honey. Isaiah 52, Awake, awake, put on your strength, Zion. He has redeemed Jerusalem, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. Psalms 122, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Isaiah 66, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What house could you build for me? And it shall be that the new moon to new moon, and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to bow down before me. These are part of the microcalligraphy text cut into the delicate thin lines of the filigree weave of stars. My newest piece, the second paper cut, Creation. Each day, each heart vibrantly carries us to the next, expressing its individual creation and existence with that day's biblical text, creating the heart's design. Each heart flows from one to the next, bringing us full circle as the cycle of the weeks and seasons evolve. Each week, Shabbat glows golden, full of blessings, centering each of us as we celebrate the gifts God has bestowed on us within the world and universe He created. Now for some fun. Noah. The building of Noah's Ark and the animals brought on board create these colorful pieces. We all know that the animals were brought on board to weigh 2, 1 male, 1 female, but it was different for the animals designated as kosher. 7 male, 7 female of each of these animals were brought on board. Therefore, the scriptural text is written 7 times. I say a prayer first thing in the morning after waking. Modeh ani, I give thanks. Thankful for the return of my soul to my body. Many parents recite this short prayer of thanks for their small children each morning, and they recite it with them, as I did with our children, and they now do with theirs. Each night before going to sleep, I say the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. While reciting the first line, traditionally one covers one's eyes in order to concentrate. As you can see here, all the animals are covering their eyes, except for the hippo, who's already sound asleep. Here we have the entire world is a very narrow bridge. The important thing is never to fear. Here you see all the different animals playing together, the giraffe and the elephant creating an amusing bridge. So much to learn from these words and so much to teach our children and each other. The entire book of Jonah read on Yom Kippur is written in all forms of sea creatures, swimming and floating along with Jonah in the belly of this frolicking whale, written 3 times for the 3 days and 3 nights Jonah spent having a whale of a time. And I've had a whale of a time sharing all of this with you. May any of these pictorial scriptures that you hang on your wall inspire and strengthen you for years to come, so that you don't have to remember everything I've said. With any purchase you make, you receive a full description, more detailed than what I've shared with you here today. Thank you so much, and blessings to you.